Welcome to Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, a ridiculously awesome podcast bursting with insightful commentaries and intriguing conversations on the topics and issues that are on the minds of marketers, advertisers, social media, and PR professionals today. Hey everybody, this is Bob Cargill, and this is Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, episode 212. Yes, the podcast I started many years ago. It seems we are up over 200 episodes, 212 episodes this will be, and I'm really proud of this. This content experiment, again, that I started a bunch of years ago, continues, and I don't plan to stop. Just like my blog, which I started in 2004, it keeps going and going and going. As does social media, as does life. I've always said social media is an extension of our lives. So as long as I'm alive, my plan right now is to keep going with all of this. And I'm glad to have all of you listening and watching. And today you're in for a special treat. We have a guest, a very special guest. I'm excited to introduce you to Hank Hoffmeier. He's a digital marketing infotainer and also a member of AMA, American Marketing Association, and that's a group I belong to a number of years as well. Hank, how are you?
Bob, I'm doing really good. There's going to be a lot of high energy on this episode because we're both high energy. We've gotten together before. You were on my show. This is going to be great.
Absolutely, and great first words. So anyone who's tuned in, do not leave. You were going to miss, if you do, you'd miss a great conversation. But we will be putting this out there, the audio version. I use Podbean as my host, but it gets blasted to wherever you listen to your podcast. I like to say your favorite podcast, and I'm hoping mine is one of them. And I also put it up on YouTube, and I usually, as a good content creator does, I slice it and dice it and distribute it all over the place on social media. And I'm guessing Hank will do the same. Hank, right away, digital marketing infotainer, love the title. You could talk about that. You can talk about your background, but I like to open up with, tell us about your journey. What's led you to this point right here, right now, with me talking today?
Well, a long time ago, I wanted to become a public speaker, not because I wanted to get on stages, I wanted to get in front of people. I wanted to educate the masses about email marketing and how important it is. And hopefully this episode will be entertaining, educational, and informative. When's the last time you were ever in an elevator and somebody gave you a quote-unquote elevator pitch, right? Hey, what do you do? And you have to pitch them, and then you're stuck with them between floors for whatever it is, 30 seconds to 3 minutes. You don't want to hear everything that they do. That's why I came up with the tagline, I'm the digital marketing infotainer. I make marketing fun and successful. Whether it's from my blog, my podcast, in videos, or from the stage, I like to make learning fun and make it digestible so you can actually take action and have certain key takeaways when it comes to doing marketing for your business.
That is a great elevator pitch in and of itself right there, Hank. And it about the time it takes to go, 3, 4, 5 floors down or up in Boston and wherever you are. I should say, where are you? I think I know Raleigh. Am I correct? Down there somewhere?
I'm more near Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's a little village called Saxbahaw, but it's about 20 minutes from Chapel Hill.
Okay, right outside of Chapel Hill, and I'm outside of Boston. I'm in Sudbury, and I don't know if we call it a village, but small town, old town, and suburbs of Boston. So, I teach a course this summer at Northeastern called Digital Era Skills, and this is an example of it. I mean, what we can do thanks to all these tools and technologies, AI, social media, email, which you're going to talk about quite a bit. I'm going to ask you some questions about it. Social media, it's just so much out there. There's no excuse for people not to communicate every day, one way or another, online. Of course, being there in person is the best thing, but email, you're going to tell me, is probably the second best thing. I'll argue maybe social media, but I have a lot of email in my background. You know that. Tell us about your email experience. So public speaking, I'm right there with you. I joined Toastmasters years ago. Went through that for 5 or 6 years. Think it's a great organization, helped me immensely. So public speaking is important, but tell us about email, why email is so important, Hank.
All right. Well, what is it, about 16 years ago, I started with a company called iContact, and it was my first foray into SaaS products, and it's an email marketing platform. And I went in with some marketing experience from previous sales roles and marketing roles, as well as owning my own business way back when. I thought I knew how email marketing worked, behind the scenes. Then I started learning, hey, there's a lot of things that I need to really dig into that are behind the scenes, and we can dig into them later, but like authentication, deliverability, and then best practices when it comes to subject lines and testing. I thought I knew a lot about how email worked, but the truth is, if you're a small business owner just getting into business or starting to use email, there is a lot that you should educate yourself on. With this AI stuff going on, you can learn by yourself. There's YouTube videos, or there's people at the companies you may use, like iContact, Constant Contact, HubSpot, that will probably have resources at your disposal. Well, maybe not, in person or chatting with you, live. Maybe it's bots, but still, you can get all that information. And I feel, depending on the situation, email is the best channel for long-term success. Now, social media is that flash in the pan that actually helps you grow your email list, right? You get all that exposure, and what you should do is be converting those lurkers to email subscribers. Because I feel like social media, not to say it's negative, but it's rented land. You have a channel and you're putting stuff out. For some reason, your channel may get demonetized, it may get suspended, it may get canceled. And what happens to all those followers you have? They're gone. They're just gone. Email is portable. When somebody gives you an email address, you have a list, you have a file. Even though it's in, say, Constant Contact, HubSpot, you can always export that out. You can use that for ads. You can do a whole bunch of different things with that content and that data you have. That's why I feel email is the best way to start growing your business more. And also, when you send out email, it kind of feels like a one-to-one conversation. Even though, Bob, you're on a list of, say, 10,000 people that I might send an email to, I can put the first name in there. I can put location information, product information that you may have bought or looked at in the past. It makes it feel personal. We all know that can get injected in there, but try doing that on social media. You have to send out a lot of DMs. You have to tag a lot of people if you want to have that one-to-one conversation or direct conversation with. And that's why I feel like a lot of people sleep on the power of email.
Hank, very well said. And when you mentioned social media, the introductory stage, maybe the top of the funnel. Am I right? In marketing terms, we might call it. And ironically, again, I've written tons of email over the years. I've been in this business since 1983, so a lot before we had any of all this technology, which was direct mail. Disparagingly called junk mail, which I used on the title of my book somewhere back here, 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons, a Long, Strange Career in Marketing from Junk Mail to Social Media. But what I want to say is then once the internet came around, I embraced social media, and I loved it because email, I felt, in direct mail I wanted to be more conversational in my communications, and not that you can't be with email, not that you can't be with direct mail, but I wanted to just be a little less marketing. I had done that so aggressively for so long, and I like just being the conversational voice that introduces the company, my clients, because I did it for a living for many, many years. I'm teaching now. I'm a professor now, teaching all of this, but I was the creative guy, and I didn't get involved in the metrics, the analytics like you do, and I didn't focus on the strategy as much as just doing the copy. And I was banging them out, emails, direct mail, and then tweets, and then blog posts, and now podcasts. Why you said something about you can get very conversational with email. Can you give me any examples how, like, let's say I was arguing. I'm not going to argue with you, Hank, but let's say I was saying, my 100 tweets on behalf of an organization could outperform your 100 emails. Right. Tell me why you would say, no, Bob, 100 emails is a lot more effective.
Well, first and foremost, let's get this out of the way. If you're just getting started, you're new, or you have a small business, and you have a Gmail address, joesplumbing@gmail.com. Don't do that. Never do that, because number one, you're restricted to not being able to effectively send bulk email. Number two, Gmail doesn't like that. Yahoo doesn't like that if you're using a Yahoo email, because you're basically using their platform for something you shouldn't, and your emails will pretty much all go to spam. So let's say you have Hank at hankhoffmeier.com like I do, and then you should be using a platform and not Gmail. And I said that because most platforms are at least going to have the ability to do personalization in the emails. And I can send out an email and put in the first name tag, Bob, comma, hey, I hope you're doing well today. Here's my next tip on email marketing. Last week we talked about this. And then if I was able to obtain, say, your location, let's just use Boston, right? Like that. Let's say you lived in Boston. I knew you lived in Boston. I can say, hey, there's a really well-known deli in Boston that is doing email marketing effectively, and here's what they do. But now somebody else on my list might be living in Chicago. There's something called dynamic content, where I can have a specific content block for each person based on the data or triggers I have. Therefore, you can combine both the personalization. You can use weather data too. You know, if it's going to be raining or something and you want to send out something to somebody and call in the rain and say, hey, come in for a warm cup of coffee. If you're a cafe, you can do that. Then the dynamic content blocks serve people the right content to the right person. That, I think, in my mind, will stop people more in their tracks rather than a 10-threaded we used to call it tweet. I don't know what we call it now.
I still call them
whatever
tweets,
that is. Like a
I know
thread,
exactly
right?
what you're saying.
Somebody
Yep.
might not read that because it's for everyone and not just them. But there's going to be some people that might like the content so much they'll read the whole thread. But I'm just getting at email's powerful because they gave you permission by giving you an email address. You should not be buying lists and sending cold emails in this day and age. There's reasons for that. But they gave you permission. They want you in the inbox. They're inviting you in. You can develop a relationship as long as you're providing value in the inbox, and you can personalize it and put in dynamic content.
What a great argument, Hank, and way of explaining it. And listen, I honestly don't disagree with you. I'm biased towards social, but again, I've done a ton of email, ton of direct mail. I'm a marketer through and through from 1983 up until now. So it's omni-channel, right? Is that one of the terms we'd use for marketing? And you need all these different platforms, right? I mean, you can't necessarily exist alone on one particular channel, not just email, not just social, not just print. Right. Ideally, you're using a bunch of these channels, correct?
Yes. Yeah, you can have SMS to get opt-ins. Then you can send out a series of emails. Then maybe you notice somebody hasn't opened and or clicked in an email for, say, a retail product. Then that Thursday, you can send out a text because maybe you're having a special that ends on Friday. That text message, if they opted in, can remind them about the sale because maybe they had your email buried in their inbox and they didn't see it. Maybe they wanted to read it, but they just didn't see it. That text message can actually help raise awareness for that sale. Then you can take that email address and create lookalike audiences or a direct audience in Facebook and serve them ads.
There you go.
Or find other people that act like them.
No, I love that. And you mentioned lookalike audiences. Our audience might not. Our audience, I don't know if they look alike, trying to make a dad joke there. But our wide and varied audience out there on the interwebs, if you will, all over the world, I hope, tell them what a lookalike audience is and how you do take from email over to social and target those ads to the same people you're talking to by email.
Let's take a list of email subscribers that you have in your system that buy from you often, and they're your VIP customers. And you want more people that look and behave like them. They're going to convert, they're going to buy, they're going to open your emails. You would take that VIP list and upload it as a custom audience, say, hey, Facebook, find me more people like this because I love these people. That's the easiest way to explain it. You have to set it up a little bit more in there. Then you can also take your subscribers who say haven't opened or clicked in 6 months or a year, upload them as a custom audience and serve them ads. And you can come out and say, hey, I noticed you haven't been opening my emails. Maybe email's not your thing. Can you follow me here on Facebook? And you'll have a call to action to follow on Facebook. So you have your custom audience and you have your lookalike audience.
Isn't direct marketing great, how far we've come and how targeted we can be and yeah, it's still not necessarily easy, everything we're talking about, but it's pretty precise. But we're always fighting against how consumer awareness, or should I say skepticism, because of spam, for instance, with email, junk mail. When I was doing all that direct mail, just the lack of trust in society nowadays. So anything that smells advertising, marketing, people run away from. How do you overcome that in general, or specifically with regard to email as a marketer? How do you overcome all that resistance, or people just trying to avoid anything that is marketing?
Well, and I love the history of that, right? Like before smartphones and the first iPhone, they came about, and then there was apps, right? And you had to pay for apps, and you had to spend your hard-earned money. And people started complaining, like, I don't want to spend $5, $25, $50 on an app. Then companies said, okay, well, we'll offer a free version, but we're going to take your data and use that data. And you got to watch advertisements. Now people are like, yeah, I still want it free, but now I don't want advertising. I don't understand how people think companies can stay in business if they're giving you a free product and you are the product, right? Because they're advertising towards you. But now that has put up a lot of friction. It's put up a lot of walls. What it comes down to at the end of the day is just being known, liked, and trusted, right? In the inbox, on social, whatever you're doing, there's personal and there's company branding. If you're the brand or you're the person that people like and they value you and your information, they'll consume your product. It doesn't matter if I have an iPhone 8 and I'm recording a video that's a little grainy, or I'm using the newest iPhone 17 Pro. As long as the audio is pretty decent and as long as I am putting out value, those videos, those images will convert.
Yeah, you said something about as long as the challenge is being known, liked, and trusted. And I do a lot of presentations like yourself. I know you're a public speaker, and I refer back to Walter Cronkite. He was a newscaster back in the day, 70s, 80s, maybe all the way back into the 60s. But he was the most trusted man in America. That's what they called him. He delivered the news, and people believed and followed loyally mainstream legacy media. And again, that's what I'm saying. We know it's not like that anymore. There's no one we can trust anymore. And so when I put my consumer hat on, we do have our work cut out for us. But the way you explain it, I mean, it's the customer journey. It might be social media where we get their attention, but then we build that relationship using email. And oh, geez, look at that.
That's my book, The ABCs of the
Hank.
Customer Journey. Yeah, the Beginner's Guide to Automation, Branding, and Customer Service.
That is fascinating. I'm giving you an opportunity. You brought it up. I did not even know you had written that book. How do people can they get a copy of that book? How do they get a copy
it's on
of that
Amazon.
book?
You can go to my website, hankhoffmeier.com, get a link to it. I mean, it's just a simple book that I wrote just to get information out there. It is pretty old by now, but it just goes through the importance of marketing automation, having great customer service, right? Because there are marketers, there are salespeople, and there are brands that will dupe you. And you may think there's value, but then all of a sudden that turns sour. And that shows up in customer reviews, right? Google reviews or videos on social media now. I see a lot of Airbnb hosts getting slammed on social media with, these videos people are putting out. But this is basically saying, to have a great company, you need to have marketing automation, you need to have your branding, and it needs to be solid and it needs to be consistent, as well as customer service. And because you mentioned the customer journey, that's what everything is about right now, from the inception of when somebody sees you, whether it's an ad in person at a conference or something, all the way to when they convert, and after that conversion, like support or anything else, are they happy in that relationship? It's like a marriage, right? People choose who they marry. They're also going to choose the brands they want to do business with.
Yep, that's that relationship, and you think of dating, if you will, the relationship marketing equivalent to dating, and yeah, you got to earn their trust, and you got to be likable, and have something to offer that they're interested in, and vice versa. So speaking of that, that's marketing, really, the exchange of value. I teach marketing, I teach business, I teach social. You know I'm not biased and leaning only on one channel. I think they're all necessary. I'm guessing you have that experience as well, not just in email. You tend to focus right on email nowadays, but do you do it all, Hank? Can I say you're someone who does it all?
Yeah. Now here's a phrase that I hardly ever hear. I'm a jack of all trades, master of a few.
I like that. How are you so ready for that question? Yeah.
I am very well versed in email. I know about SMS marketing, and I know social media marketing. I'm pretty good with video editing as well, and doing things like, TikTok and YouTube, those kind of things. SEO, I'm decent in. PPC, I'm decent in. But, like for, $100,000 a month spend, I might not be your guy with PPC and SEO, stuff like that. But yeah, I know all of that as well. And more recently, I'm trying to grow who I'm working with, and I want to bring on a few more clients. And I've been dabbling with Facebook ads, and that platform's always changing. And what's interesting, and I know we should be talking about AI, I'm using Claude. I was going through, hey, I want to build my audience, but in Meta Business, it's so hard to build your audience because you have to search for each job title or interest and then put it in, and you might miss some. I said, hey, Claude, can you help me write a list out of what my audience should look like? Here's my goal. And it said, hey, do you want me to control your browser and do that for you? I said, yeah, go ahead. And it went in and it helped me create a draft of my ad. And there's always got to be, whether it's email or anything, if you're using AI, there has to be that human in the loop, right? You have to look at what it did to make sure that it's not messing up. Because I had AI draft a few emails, and even though it put the link in there, it made up these UTM tracking parameters for people who don't know what they are, and had it there bare naked in the email. And I said, people are going to think that's weird and it's a phishing link. I need to clean that up. That's why it's always important to take a look at what these AI tools do. But yes, I'm fluent in many marketing channels, but not all of them highly effectively. But I'm learning them now again because I need to get my branding out there. I need to read my book again to get back out there in the world.
Well, a good segue. But I first want to mention when we're talking about AI, you said something like we should be talking about AI. I was going there eventually, but let's hold off just for a couple more minutes on AI, because you just said something about branding yourself and acquiring more clients. Tell us what you're doing right now, and versus what maybe you were doing in the past, and what you hope to be doing in the future. Is that a fair question?
Yeah. Well, historically, I worked with companies, whether it was a solopreneur or, Fortune 500 company, with their email marketing campaigns as an account manager, a strategist. Then I was on the platform side working for Kickbox, which is an email verification company. I helped make that product better, help support their initiatives when it came to customer service. I helped implement AI for their after-hour support, trained a support team, took product feedback to make the product better. And then I did a lot of technical aspects as well, like security questionnaires for clients, large clients that wanted to work with Kickbox, helped with SOC 2 attestation. I am, like I said, a jack of all trades, master of a few. But all along the way, I have been working with people on the side with their social media, with PPC, SEO, blogging, and social media as well. But I'm moving into that a little bit more full time now. And the best offering I have where I can be the most effective is a smaller to mid-sized business that wants help with email marketing campaigns, because we just told you once we opened the show today that email marketing is one of the most important channels, but a lot of companies and people don't put a lot of thought into it. Therefore, if somebody wants help, even if you just want to have a conversation, free of charge, let's have a conversation around what you should do. I can give you some tips and information. But if you want to work with me, by all means, we can do that. Just go to my website, HankHoffmeier.com.
Awesome, Hank. And yeah, spray and pray is what some of these companies might be doing out there, right? Versus hiring Hank Hoffmeier, and they should be hiring Hank Hoffmeier. And I think you're not just a jack of all trades, master of a few. You're master of a ton of other trades.
That.
I mean, you have a multitude of skills and talent, and in a way, especially me, because I'm a lot older than you, but people like us who've been around the block at least a couple times, me a couple dozen times. you have to know a lot about marketing in this day and age. It's not like back in the 80s and the 90s when I was just a copywriter. All I had to do was writing, period. No pun intended, punctuation mark, period. Actually, writing exclamation mark. That's all I did, and I can't believe that's all I did. And now AI can probably do a lot of what I did the first 15, 20 years of my career. We have to embrace technology. We have to use a multitude of channels, both offline and on, to reach our customers, to acquire them, to retain them. Tell me about AI, how you're working, if you don't mind, how you're working with AI, where you think AI is going, how people can use AI if they want to do it themselves. What are your thoughts with regard to, you mentioned Claude, I use ChatGPT a lot. We know how many, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands, right, AI tools out there. What's your thoughts on that? What say you?
Right. For email, let's just talk about that really quickly. Email, I think, is the most flexible option using AI because, sure, you need to verify and read and look at the content that comes out, but there's not a lot that can go wrong if you're saying, hey, I need help with images and text for an email I want to send out. Here's some prior emails. Here's content from my blog. Here is the new product information we're going to launch. It can help you craft that email. And you can train it to look, act, and feel like you and create those emails from your or your brand's voice, put brand coloring in there. Just be careful about doing everything 100% and just copying and pasting, especially if you're going to have it create, say, like an email template in HTML. There could be things that it's not doing that you don't know about, like alt tags and making sure that if an image is not loaded, that it's explaining what that is. There could be certain code that breaks when it gets rendered in, say, Gmail or especially Outlook, because that's pretty nefarious for breaking the way emails look. But yeah, using AI with email is such a great treat because it's easy. But now if you're trying to use it for SEO, website design, there's so many caveats and things that you need to look out for, and so many, I want to call them rules, right, and guardrails that you have to put on. Again, take what I say with a grain of salt. You should be looking at everything you're creating for email. But me, I have Gemini because I'm in the G Suite, and I love how it integrates with Sheets, with Docs, with my email. I could search for email better than I could have in the past. Gemini does a great job on certain things more than, say, Claude. But Claude, agentic AI, where when you download it or use Claude Code on your computer, it can actually control your computer and manipulate and control files. I like that a lot better for my quote-unquote agentic information. And then even in the last couple of weeks, Gemini's come out with some new stuff with their desktop app that's doing more and more. It's going to keep leapfrogging. But with Claude, you can go in, give it the instructions. You can even have a GitHub account, which is like for developers mostly, but now it's for anyone. I can create a project and say, save it to GitHub. I actually did that yesterday with something for authentication, and I don't think we should get into the weeds on that, but it's on my YouTube channel. To search for my name, you'll find it, because there's a certain thing that is with authentication called DMARC. It's a report you get of anyone that may be sending emails on your behalf that does not have permission. Spammers, people that are trying to fish on your behalf. You can get a report and it comes to your inbox, but it's XML. It's basically code, right? Nobody wants to go and read code like the Matrix. You can use services that'll manipulate that for free and give you reports, but then that's a separate platform you have to log into. I use Claude to help me develop a script for Google that says, hey, anytime this email comes in, take this attachment, convert it into a report every Monday, and send it to me in a format that I can actually read it. And I said, hey, people might want to use that and have instructions. I had Claude connect to GitHub and create a GitHub repo for that. And now people can just go get that repo or tell Claude to go get it and basically recreate that project that I have. You're going to, and that's like the future of AI is I think people are going to start sharing more and more what they're doing. For those that are not savvy with AI, there's files called MD files. They're called markdown files. It's basically the instructions that these AIs and these LLMs can create and use. Let's just say I am putting my brand out there and I have my brand colors, my logo. everything in a file or folder on my computer, and I can tell Claude or Gemini to go in and hey, create a master branding document for me. Here's my tone of voice. Here's my personality. Here's how I like to be seen in the world as a brand. It'll create that MD file and always have it. It's like having an SOP document back in the day in a binder. Maybe you worked for a company. Some people may be old enough that you were handed a binder when you started, and it was
I used to write those binders.
You used to write those, so you know what they are. And then 3 weeks later, you have to update it or replace certain pages because it's outdated. But MD files are so much better. I use AI wherever I can. I do find in certain platforms, like maybe certain email platforms, they have AI, but it's not the best. You know, you can say, hey, I want to write an email about this and this new product. It might get you half of the way there, but it's not going to be as good as like your Gemini or your ChatGPT or Claude. Just be careful what you're using AI in and what tools, you know, are more effective for you. I'm using Go High Level now for a lot of my marketing, and that's awesome. And they have like an AI assistant that does everything. And they just had a feature update where it can actually control your browser too. You can say, go out and get me some leads and pull them into Go High Level. It'll go outside of Go High Level, start doing the work, and bring it back in. It's really cool.
Go High Level, I've not even heard of that, Hank, and I consider myself quite well-versed in all this stuff. So I'm going to look that up after we hang up today. You have mentioned so many, in terms of content, so many different formats and materials that I used to write, you know, as a copywriter or direct the writing and designing of as a creative director. You know, it's changed the game, changed job descriptions, how work gets done. It gets done faster. It gets done maybe better, maybe cheaper. I don't know. I'm not managing a company and managing operations. Like, I'm not in the weeds like you are as much. But I am teaching it, and I have to stay on top of it. So here's a question, and I teach in a course right now, Digital Era Skills at Northeastern, and then the fall I'm back to Suffolk and back to Mass College of Pharmacy and Northeastern, social media, marketing, and business. And I need to be, you know, on top of exactly what's happening, when, where, how, et cetera. So having the background I do in advertising and marketing, you're in the thick of it. Tell me how AI is changing agency life, changing job descriptions. Say, what should I be telling college students? And a lot of them are grad students at Northeastern, especially. What should I be telling them about AI and the skills they need to be a marketer like yourself, you know, super talented, the jack of all trades, master of everything?
I am not going to have the 100% correct answer, because I think that we're on the cusp of AI changing the way I think it evolved so fast.
Yeah.
But now we need to take a step back, and it needs to recalibrate and figure things out. I have a feeling that, hey, you're paying $20 a month for your Claude subscription, but they're losing money. Like, I think, what was it, Google said, you know, they're losing money on Gemini now. First time, I think they said like 16 years they've actually lost money, and it's because of AI. They're offering, you know, these cheap subscriptions, but I have a feeling they're going to go up in price, but they're going to keep getting better and better. But that means if you're paying more, you need to use it more effectively. And I think they may go to token-based pricing rather than just a monthly subscription.
Yep.
Therefore, you do need to make sure that you're using the correct prompts, doing it correctly. I think there are a lot of people going in and doing one-sentence prompts, right? Write me an email about why installing new Windows is important in your home, right? And then it gives you slop, right? I guess that's the term that's going around these days. But if you give it like a 4, 5, 8 paragraph instruction set on what you need to sell Windows, it's going to do a lot better of a job. If you have other documents, if you have your mechanical, you know, information about the Windows, it's going to help you so much more. And I think that we need to be fluent and also start learning the command line versions of these tools, right? When you're doing it in a terminal rather than the GUI interface like Gemini. When you log into Gemini, you know, .google.com, you know, it's like you're in a browser like you are with almost anything else, like Google. But I use Claude in the terminal-based application, which allows you to be a little bit more efficient, doesn't have a lot of distractions, and helps you get to the point and get it done. And then figuring out, I think it's getting easier to point it to files and folders on your computer, but you need to know how to do that effectively and efficiently, and making sure it's documenting and telling it like, hey, I'm doing this project and I want you to document all along the way. And what GitHub is good too, if you're doing code for certain things, is it can have versions of your code, because maybe you got 3 versions into something that you're doing that involves a script. You can say, oh no, oh my God, it's not what I want. I want to go back to that first version. With GitHub, you can actually do that rather than having it be somewhere on your computer, or you've forgotten to even have a document or an outline for what you're working on. And I guess I'm kind of skirting the question, but I think that newer folks going into employment need to be AI first. But yep. I think also that human and social skill set is still very important and will still be needed, especially I think those companies that still maintain a human customer service aspect to their company will thrive more than somebody that's always going to be AI first for, say, support.
I agree with the answer. I mean, I think we all might articulate it slightly different, but the same conclusion. I mean, AI has to be first, but not at the expense of the human qualities, attributes, like decision making and judgment. And ironically, going back to, I'm a writer, that helps. You're a public speaker, that helps. Just what we're doing right now helps. You need to have a multitude of skills. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're talking to each other, having a conversation, figuring things out, predicting the future, etc. So, I have a friend who's in the business of content creation, and he calls it an operator. He uses the term for people now who are like content creators. We're operating all these different systems and methodologies and tools and technologies. So you're more a maestro, a director, a choreographer. He says operator. And I think like when I went back in the day, for an interview, and they'd give me like a copywriting test. Now it might be an AI test, and how quickly can you answer these questions? How quickly can you write this brief or write this email or 10 tweets for me? I'm making that up on the fly, but it's being an operator of and maestro and coordinator and coach, leader, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like you have all these virtual assistants working for you. Yeah. So what is the possibilities are endless. I mean, in terms of what a small company could do with someone like you, someone like me, right, and AI. Where do they start? We're going to wind down in a few minutes, just so you know, Hank.
Sure.
In terms of the time, how the clock's going by, I want to give us a few more minutes. But where does a company start with everything that we've talked about? We've talked about email. We've talked about social. We've talked about AI, marketing overall. So I'm a new company. I am not me, but I'm in Cambridge because I go into Cambridge and Boston a lot, and I'm a founder, and I get this great app or this great product. Where do I begin? Is that a fair question? And can, if not just you, between the two of us, answer that question?
Right. And I didn't want to interrupt you, but before we do that too, let's just, because you're going to use AI and we'll get to that part, if you're just starting out. But I like to think of it as the AI tool or tools you use are a coworker. Think of them as a super intern. You're still the boss, which means you have to, manage them. You have to set expectations. You have to review, and you may have to praise or you may have to criticize a little bit. And the AI tool can take that. It has thick skin, right? And it'll also take the praise, and it'll praise you a lot even if you're doing something wrong. So keep that in mind. But let's say somebody's getting started, and these are the people I've been talking to over the last couple weeks.
Forgive me for interrupting you. Yeah. I hear that all the time from my AI. Great job, Bob. That is the best point you've made. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you tell me that earlier? Why didn't you come up with that point?
You know what you should do every time? Just say, hey, anytime you have a compliment for me and you don't know if it's really a compliment or not, call me Joe, right? Because then what'll happen is like, great job, Joe. That's a good idea. That wasn't a confident statement. It didn't think that it was really good, but it was trying to stroke your ego.
It's won me over, and I think everybody in their brother and sister, it's won over all these different tools. But go ahead. You were going somewhere with.
Everything I mentioned needs to be as professional as possible. And I say that loaded for a reason. If you're starting out, you're going to be bootstrapped. Everything's expensive these days, whether it's, food, starting a website, getting customers, it's all very expensive. And you will need to use a few or a lot of different tools. And I don't blame you if you want to use the free versions or the cheaper versions, but just make sure everything is on the up and up, because it does affect your branding. And that's number one, branding. You have to have a logo. You have to have a website. And, maybe if it's certain aspects, business cards, I need to print them out because I had somebody ask me for one the other day and I didn't have a physical business card.
They've got more expensive too over the years.
Yeah.
I need some.
I use a digital one, but it's not the same. It's not a leave behind, right? Somebody has to actually take action and scan it or get a link or a QR code to get it. But branding, right? Sure, use AI to help you build a website if you're going to do it on your own, but be very careful. Don't let it, quote unquote, build the whole thing. Have it give you inspiration to use a drag and drop editor somewhere. GoDaddy has a great tool. WordPress is decently easy to use. They have templates. I would start with those, because if you just take scripts that an AI tool wrote, it's going to do you more damage than good. It's not, like I said, it's going to have all that issues in the code in the back. And you need to be careful unless you're a coder, or pay someone to build a website for you. Very important. And have a logo. Yes, you can have AI create a logo for you. Again, same caveats. Maybe just go to Fiverr and spend that $50, which is very cheap to get a logo, because there's people out there charging $500 to $2,000 for a logo or branding. So I don't blame you if you start out doing this. Have a domain, joesplumbing.com. Don't use Joe at Joe's Plumbing at gmail.com. Have a domain, start email marketing, right? On your website, you need to have a subscription form. Sign up for my newsletter. You're going to start doing at least a monthly newsletter or something selling your product and services. And then you'll have that form on the site. That's where you start collecting email addresses. Start doing social media. It's so easy now to do social media. Just get in front of the your phone and record. Or you can create graphics in Canva, right? You can also use AI to build you stuff, but just be careful. Right now, a lot of food trucks or restaurants are getting in trouble for what they're calling AI slop flyers, where the food isn't actually their food in the pictures and it doesn't even look like it. And sometimes when you get up close, it doesn't even look enticing to eat. Be careful with what you're using AI for with content, images, websites. So you have your website, your brand, your logo, you're starting with email marketing, you're using social media, then maybe dabble in some paid ads, whether it's in Google, whether it is on Facebook or Instagram, pay a little bit, or at least start boosting your posts, which is a little bit different. It's cheaper. You can spend $5 to get pushed out to more people. And that's a way to do that. And there was something I just had. Oh, if you're a local brick and mortar business or service, Google Business is the most important thing. Actually, for brick and mortar and location-based businesses, Google Business trumps social, it trumps Bob, and it trumps email, trumps me. You need to have that, because that'll be the biggest source of your leads. And then encourage people to give you reviews for Google as well if you're local. So that right there is probably, I want to say, like the starter set, right? It's your small business starter set.
You included from soup to nuts everything that a business needs to know. We can replay that, and I'm proud to say it's on my podcast, but you are the star of this show today, Hank. And that one answer alone would benefit so many people. I'll tell you a story without naming names. Someone I know needed an ultrasound recently, and it was after hours. And instead of going to the emergency room, they looked up on Google ultrasound off hours in the geography, and they found one. And the guy said, "Of course you found it. We come up first when you look for us." Somehow they knew how to come up first and drive business just by someone talking into the phone saying, "I need an ultrasound locally now," off hours. I mean, that's the Google Business Suite, right? That's what you're talking about. Have what do they call it? The presence on.
A map pack. Yeah, they call it a map pack. Like when you you search for like plumbers near me, you'll have like the first few listings. Now they're starting to put more ads at the top, but it'll have the listings of the first 3 plumbers that have the best, optimized business page.
And you can pay to get listed there, but you can also organically do a lot that will help you. And the same with is it instead of SEO now we're saying GEO or AGO.
Yeah. It just depends. Yeah, a lot of people call it different things, but they're very similar. Yeah. It's just that they're slightly different tactics for each, but don't stop what you're doing with SEO. You just need to change it a little bit, and it works for both. Then there's a lot of tips and tricks. You can actually have like an AI instruction set on your website to have the tools crawl that and cite you as well. But putting out a lot of great content that is short, sweet, valuable. One phrase on that is like, if you have an 800-word blog post that is kind of redundant, somebody else wrote something similar, 500 words, the AI tool is going to scrape the 500-word one and not the 800-word one. It's going to fatigue out and say, look, I found a better one over here. I'm just going to use that. So everything needs to be short, sweet, succinct, and valuable. I think we said that numerous times in here. This needs to be very valuable.
Hank, are you kidding me? I mean, this is like a master class in marketing. Never mind email, never mind social media. We started there, but I mean, we're covering the whole gamut, and the brilliant founders that are out there nowadays. I meet so many of them in Boston and in Cambridge, and I teach so many ingenious students that have such bright futures ahead of them. I mean, episode like this, they need to listen to, or even better, they need to reach out to you directly, Hank. I mean, not even a question. I'm not necessarily out there looking for clients anymore. I've been there, done that. I'm teaching. I'm looking for students. I'm looking for opportunities to teach and speak. And in that, I'm working on my second book, but not looking for clients. You are, or put it this way, they should be looking for you. How do they find you? Tell me anything else you want to talk about with regard to your business that we haven't covered, please.
Right. One thing in the show notes, we'll have a link. It's just going to be an email marketing success guide from soup to nuts. Everything like we talked about, authentication. I'll explain that a little bit. Setting up your templates, having a welcome series, automation, all these different things. It'll explain it in there, and that's free. I want to give that to folks. There is an opportunity in there. If you did want to reach out and work with me, by all means you can, but the guide is free. You can go to hankhoffmeier.com. All my socials are on there. And if you reach out on LinkedIn, just put a little bit of a blurb on there that you saw me on the show. This way I don't ignore your request, because I don't accept blind invites. I like to have a very curated and valuable network, and I'd love to connect with you. So just do that. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel, TikTok, and I'm always just putting stuff out there. A lot of tips, tricks, and my podcast is the HMBT podcast, Hank's Marketing and Business Tips. I put out an episode. I try to do 1 to 2 a month, and Bob has been on it, and I just give valuable information about business, right? I have people come on. I had somebody come on talking about when you're using AI generated content and being careful with that. And then if you're using stock images, how you can get in trouble if you don't have the right attributions, you can get sued. I had a lawyer on talking about that. Just a lot of different things people don't think about, or maybe just information about how to run your business properly. Yeah, reach out. Be happy to have a conversation.
Hank Hoffmeier, jack of all trades, master of all trades. Okay, you start changing how you answer that question, and if you can say that's what I said, if you're too humble to say it yourself. And digital marketing infotainer, and you are very entertaining, but you have so much information and knowledge and expertise to share, Hank. And I'm honored and happy to have had you as a guest on episode 212 of Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. So on behalf of Hank Hoffmeier and myself, thanks everybody for listening, for watching. You'll find us on YouTube. You'll find it on social. Both Hank and I will be sharing it all over the place, and you'll find it where you listen to your favorite podcasts. And I hope Hank Hoffmeier's podcast, as well as mine, is one of your favorite. Anything else, Hank? Parting words?
Send more email, but do it right.
I right there with you. And I would say hook up with me on social, and Hank as well, and listen to our podcast. And thanks again, everybody. See you later. We'll see you soon.